When I think about CBMC in terms of calling, I think one of the things that believers long for in the marketplace is an opportunity to see their calling not only as the universal calling that God puts on all believers, which is that we are to be His witnesses, His ambassadors, but also that we are to understand that God has placed us in specific places right in the marketplace, right in our neighborhoods, right in our very lives, where He brings people across our path on a regular basis that He intends to impact as His life is lived through us. And so it's very much like CBMC USA and putting out the resource we call Living Proof. One of the first things we recognize is that God is at work around us all the time. In the relationships around us, in the marketplace, He's at work even as we ignore or don't pick up on the subtle things that He's doing. And so in our very first step, even in our calling, is prayer, is to understand that God has a plan and He's placed me in a specific place and He's at work around me in the lives of people. And so I learned to observe what God's doing through prayer. I learned to recognize the people that He's inviting me to interact with, to share my very life with. And as I observe where God is at work, I get the joy of investing in relationships, which is our second point as we teach the idea of being living proof. I invest in the lives of people right around me. Sometimes we refer to it as our sphere of influence, where God has allowed us to have influence in the lives of others. And so as we invest in those relationships, I believe we earn the right then to go into the third part of the Living Proof teaching point, and that is to explore truth. So we observe that God's at work around us all the time. We join Him in His invitation to be a part of His work. We invest in the relationships that He's put specifically in our lives. And we earn the right. You know, it's been said that people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And so as you look at that, as we invest in lives, we earn the right, if you will, then to share God's truth. Then they want to know, what is it that gives us the reason for the hope that we've demonstrated as we live our lives? And so for me, CBMC, the opportunity that CBMC provides is to be genuine to the calling that God's put on my life, not only the universal calling of being His witnesses, being His ambassadors, 2 Corinthians 5:20, but also the opportunity to live my life in such a way that I experience His specific calling. You know, we say that when you witness, we often think of words, the right words to use. But it's the very life that we're living as we are living proof. It's the opportunity that we have to be the best accountant, the best attorney, the best doctor, the best janitor, the best, whatever God has called you to, even in your vocation. It's an opportunity to glorify Him. And by glorifying Him in that specific calling, we have an opportunity to share what the gospel looks like. God's at work redeeming everything, including my calling to work. I've had the chance to see a lot of young people get excited about the fact that God intends us to live an integrated life, that faith and work are not disconnected ideas. In fact, far from it. Our faith should absolutely impact every part of our work. As Colossians 3:23 says, doing our work as not unto men, but unto the Lord and to His glory. And that is what brings people to the place of asking why. Why do you live the way you do? Why do you work the way you do? What is it that makes you different? And when we get people curious, I love curiosity because it brings people to ask questions. When we get people curious about why it is we do what we do, that becomes an opportunity to share the reason for the hope that we have, that this life matters. And I think everybody wants to know that their life matters. And so really evangelism is something that naturally comes out of our lives. It is our calling both universally, but also to the vocation that God has put us in. And it allows us, as people begin to explore truth, to fulfill His desire for the Great Commission, which is as you're going through life, as you're being that doctor, that lawyer, that attorney, whatever God has called you specifically to in a vocation, that as you're doing that, you're making disciples. And so that is my great interest in the ministry of CBMC, is that it allows me to be exactly who God called me to be in the marketplace.
Excellent.